Now, he was already dangerously disturbed. Had been ever since his father died. His mother was a clinging, demanding woman.
On this day in 1990, Misery premiered in theaters, bringing Stephen King's gripping novel to life with masterful direction by Rob Reiner and unforgettable performances by Kathy Bates and James Caan. Bates's portrayal of the unstable and obsessive Annie earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress, solidifying her place in cinematic history as one of the most memorable villains. Misery is lauded not only for its suspenseful narrative and psychological depth, but also for its exploration of themes like obsession and the creative process. Do you have a favorite Stephen King adaptation? Let us know in the comments.
Number 10. Misery. Stephen King isn't the most grounded writer out there. What with the alien clown things and haunted hotels.
I guess you could say the Overlook Hotel here has something about it that's like shining.
But sometimes he dips into the realm of psychological horror, and Misery is arguably his best work in that regard. The movie adaptation is also one of his best, complete with an Oscar-winning performance from Kathy Bates.
I can imagine what you might be thinking of me, but you see, Paul, it's all okay. Last night it came so clear. I realize you just need more time. Eventually you'll come to accept the idea of being here.
It seems like every other day there's a tragic news story about a kidnapping or an imprisonment, and Misery captures the experience in horrifying detail. The story also has roots in the author's personal life. King tried writing a high fantasy book called The Eyes of the Dragon, but fans immediately rejected it because it wasn't horror.
You dirty bird. How could you?
Feeling metaphorically imprisoned by his fans, King wrote Misery as a creative release. Number 9. Hush. Today, director Mike Flanagan is one of the biggest names in horror, with huge studios and huge studio money behind him. But back in 2016, he was making intimate horror films with his wife, Kate Siegel, for $1 million.
I'll pop by tomorrow and brush up signs. I'm gonna get good. I'm determined.
Hush is a simple home invasion thriller with a twist. Maddie Young, a reclusive horror writer, is both mute and deaf, which severely hinders her defense.
Miss the city yet? Seriously, Maddie? Maybe you could come back. Live with me. I worry about you.
Some of the movie's most white-knuckle scenes are utilised through this twist, with Maddie's lack of hearing leaving her in a vulnerable state. Like most home invasion flicks, Hush is very much rooted in everyday crime and danger.
Seriously, Maddie, maybe you could come back and live with me. You know, I worry about you.
You never know when your fellow man will decide to attack. Number 8. Audition. Today, Takashi Miike's psychological horror film is remembered for its revolting climax. Yes, the concept of holding auditions to find a new wife is a little goofy, but this is only a fun tool to get to the good stuff. Shigeharu Aoyama falls for a mysterious young girl named Asami, but a creepy trail of dismemberment and death serves as a massive red flag. He pursues her anyway and discovers the truth. Asami is deeply unhinged and has a thing for torturing people. The reception to Audition was unlike anything else at the time, with many critics noting its deeply disturbing and naturalistic atmosphere. It mixes slasher movie gore with psychological realism, and that is never a comfortable combination. Number 7. Jaws. Okay, there are certainly some imaginative elements to Jaws.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
It's a Spielberg film after all. But the concept of a hungry shark eating beachgoers is terrifyingly plausible.
Are you going to close the beaches?
Yes, we are.
In fact, the events of Jaws are ripped directly from history. In July 1916, the Jersey Shore suffered a spate of shark attacks that left one person injured and 4 dead. That isn't the only part that bears a relation to Jaws. The attacks naturally caused a wave of panic. The seaside community focused on efforts to save its tourist and beach-based economy.
You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
And yes, people took to the open water to hunt sharks. Author Peter Benchley was greatly inspired by this story and penned Jaws, which became an instant bestseller. Number 6. The Purge. The first Purge film obviously has an outlandish plot. To help stymie crime rates, a totalitarian political party makes all crime legal for one night.
This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of the annual purge sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge.
But it's also the most down-to-earth entry in the series, because it's basically another home invasion thriller. The wealthy stand-in family is targeted by numerous people, including a random group of purgers and their own neighbours.
We've gotten gussied up in almost terrifying guises. As we do every year. Ready to violate, annihilate, and cleanse our souls.
The actual purge is only used as a setting backdrop and to prevent the stand-ins from simply calling the police. Home invasion thrillers are deeply unsettling because they bear the greatest semblance to reality.
And you can either die like a man and walk outside there by yourself, or you can die like a coward and get my wife and my children killed along with you. Okay, so take that gun away from my daughter's head.
Being personally invaded is a fear that we all share, and The Purge takes full advantage of that. Number 5. The Strangers. This is another home invasion movie, with on-the-rocks couple Kristen and James being hunted by a group of random strangers inside a remote summer home.
Come here, sit down. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. How do you know there's somebody out there?
I saw a man at the back door, and he's wearing a mask.
The setting makes the movie even scarier, because the characters have nowhere to run and no one to turn to. It's a realistic situation that no one wants to find themselves in.
She's watching us.
She looks like a ghost. You want me to go talk to her?
Some academics have even recognised how writer-director Brian Bertino utilises the remote pastoral setting to comment on human depravity. The Strangers also resembles many real-life crimes, including the quadruple Keddy homicide of 1981, and the infamous Manson killings, which served as a direct influence for Bertino.
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you were home.
Number 4. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Alright, hold on a second before going to the comments. This movie actually subverts the worn-out supernatural genre by touching on how mental illness can often be misinterpreted as otherworldly possession.
In the case before you, the evidence will show that the victim had a serious medical condition that demanded medical treatment.
The movie includes traditional religious horror movie iconography, but it's more about dissecting the fine line between possession and mental illness.
What about medical care?
I wanted her to continue. I never said she should quit seeing her doctors. That would have been quite wrong. Medical care is not my field.
But you did suggest she stop taking the drug, Gambutrol.
In fact, the story is directly based on the real case of Anneliese Michel. Michel was a young Bavarian woman who suffered from psychosis and underwent 67 exorcisms, as her family believed that she was possessed. She ultimately died of malnutrition, and both her parents and the priests were found guilty of negligent homicide.
In the case of the People versus Father Richard Moore, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of negligent homicide.
Number 3. Psycho. A major influence on the horror genre, Psycho is all about the psychology of Norman Bates.
Matricide is probably the most unbearable crime of all. Most unbearable to the son who commits it. So he had to erase the crime, at least in his own mind.
One of the greatest movie serial killers, Bates has a split personality and often takes the appearance of his deceased mother. He kills those he feels attracted to, wishing to belong solely to his mother.
Do you go out with friends?
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Bates embodies the traits of many killers, specifically Ed Gein. Gein also killed women, shared an intimately close relationship with his mother, and hoped to embody her by wearing a grotesque suit made of female skin.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Robert Bloch's novel was almost complete by the time Gein's crimes were revealed, proving how art and reality often intersect. Number 2. Open water. Humans are not meant to be in the ocean, and disaster can strike in seconds out on the open water. In this movie, Susan and Daniel are accidentally left behind on a scuba diving excursion, leaving them stranded in the water and battling dehydration, exposure, and hungry sharks.
Daniel, where's the boat?
It's a good question.
It's a horrifyingly plausible situation, and one that makes us reluctant to go out there ourselves. In fact, this story is so plausible that it actually happened.
I don't think they can see us.
The movie is based on the disappearance of Tom and Eileen Lonergan, who too were accidentally abandoned while diving in the Great Barrier Reef. Like Susan and Daniel, both Tom and Eileen are presumed to have perished at sea. Number 1. The Silence of the Lambs. This is often regarded as the quintessential psychological horror movie, and for good reason. Not only does it accurately depict the detecting process, but it also examines the traits and methodologies of serial killers.
It excites him. Most serial killers keep some sort of trophies from their victims.
I didn't.
Some events are obviously exaggerated to make an exciting story, like Hannibal's dramatic escape from custody. But both Hannibal Lecter and Buffalo Bill are more realistic than most fictional serial killers.
Do you think if you save poor Catherine, you could make them stop, don't you? You think if Catherine lives, you won't wake up in the dark ever again to that awful screaming of the lambs.
The Silence of the Lambs stands out not for its story, although it certainly has a good one, but for the psychology it gives to its villains. The movie treats them as people rather than one-dimensional serial killers, and is grotesquely realistic as a result.
The significance of the moth is change. Caterpillar into chrysalis or pupa, and from thence into beauty. Our belly wants to change too.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.